And this is where I think the idea of notation being embedded in the copyright legislation is because it gives a monopoly, a sort of monopoly to the author, that there must be certainty of what is being protected. And in that way, the fixation requirement has its own merits. The work for hire doctrine has created a lot of problems for choreographers and will continue to do so, especially now with the exploitation of works in media, internet, digitalized communication, DVDs, YouTube. And because of the growing market for dance works, there is the danger that the producers would acquire rights. And another factor which is very dear to the heart of choreographers is maintaining the integrity of their works. When it's adapted into another media, unless it's adapted with appropriate skill, the work may be treated in a derogatory fashion. And that's where moral rights come in. And because in UK law, there's a provision for waiver, and this is where the choreographer runs the danger of selling their soul away. And it is another area where I think choreographers have to be wary. And as a consequence, in my reckoning with the position of the choreographer as author, they have to be more sophisticated in their approach to managing their works, and to be wary of contractual traps, because producers, Jerome Robbins is a perfect example of a choreographer who had exercised his agency. His lawyers have worked very hard for him, and he even secured his name as choreographer, director, in equal status with Leonard Bernstein in West Side Story and Arthur Loren, the lyricist. And you know, he made his mark. But he's an unusual beast. Most choreographers do not have that clout that he had. And this is where, even with his meticulous attention to detail, he was booted out of Hollywood in the production of West Side Story, because he kept taking takes after takes after takes, and the budget just went. And the Mersch brothers, who were the producers, kicked him out, because Hollywood contracts favor the producers for budgetary reasons, and they were able to exercise that clause. So, you know, my reckoning about the whole process is, we, the choreographers, the dance community, must acquire a better awareness of copyright and their rights, and seek to secure their rights. The days of working without the benefits of copyright, I think, are over if they want to make a living.
Thank you very much, Francis. I mean, that's a very good, thoughtful note on which to end that talk. Charlotte.
Yes, I pick up on a few. That was lovely. Thank you. That was really nice. Well, I think the point I think I want to pick up on a little bit is your emphasis on the fixation on fixation, because this you picked this up a few times in what you were saying. And what I loved, that at one point you were thinking as a performer, and you were saying that each time a performance is performed, it reestablishes itself. So a performance is different each time in ballet, and yet, when you had your lawyer's hat on, you said how important the fixation is, because then we have to think about, sort of the copyright and the rights and things. So I found this, sort of dichotomy. I found the dichotomy absolutely fascinating. And of course, then you need, sort of the fixation for other legal things to prove, sort of ownership and all of this. But I wonder, certainly historically, the extent to which fixation has been important in the dance industry and to choreographers. And you said, you know, sort of it hasn't been. It's an art form that's ephemeral in nature, it's survived without script or text, and it's survived without fixation. But now there is a move towards more recording. Now, you've said you don't think the dance industry will survive without thinking about, or at least individuals in the dance industry won't survive without thinking about copyright. Now, I might challenge you on that, but how much of the recording do you think is done in order to assert rights and in future exploit rights, and how much is about trying to you know, sort of have a record of the dances for educational purposes, for historical purposes, for archival purposes, not for assertions of ownership or rights. And I wonder also the extent to which the rights are perhaps more important, and I think you alluded to this several times, in terms of attribution, as opposed to claims of, you know, sort of ownership and therefore rights and therefore income, but rather it's my, you know, sort of it's my work or my contribution to that particular work. And two more. Would a focus on copyright actually bring us to some real problems that Dee and Johan have been talking about? Where does somebody's, you know, sort of right end and somebody else's begin? When is it derivative? When is it an arrangement if it was music? And when you're actually infringing on somebody else's rights? And something that's not there at the moment and hasn't, as you rightly said, there's a complete dearth of case law, so it hasn't raised its head. So, you know, maybe we should leave it alone, as Ronan has told me before. Leave it alone, Charlotte.
Yes.
And finally, I think, because we did talk about what is beyond fixation, and it's all this, you know, sort of immediacy with the audience. And for me in particular, in dance, you can't capture that. So I wonder actually the extent to which there would be a market for, you know, you could in any way actually commercially make recordings of dance and then make them commercially viable. And allied to that, I understand, and this again came through our evidence, that even when some productions tried to get sort of the unions to agree to fixation and exploitation, it was prohibitively expensive. So
Well, yeah, I actually got a whole section on it. I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but since you asked, you've given me the opportunity to use it. William Forsythe, one of our postmodern choreographers, he actually is now, at the very moment, in a project called Motion Bank. He and a few others are creating, are discovering different methods of recording dance and putting it in a motion bank available for everyone to interact and enjoy. So with advances in recording technology, there are many tools now available. Merce Cunningham uses what we call live forms, or now it is renamed dance forms, as a tool for creativity. It is a computer program that brings forth a